Okay, well, that was very dramatic, wasn't it? Now, clause suspensive, or in English, suspensive clauses. Now, I've mentioned these in other videos, specifically my multi-award-winning video, My Offer Has Been Accepted, What Happens Now? See the link above, very handy. But in essence, a suspensive clause acts as a kind of get-out-of-jail-free card for buyers and sellers. Once both parties have signed a compromis de vente, which is the French sales contract, and the 10-day cooling off period has expired, then if either party, including the sellers, pulls out, then they are liable to pay the other party 10% of the value of the property. If there is a suspensive clause in the contract that has not been fulfilled, then the contract, and hence the payment, becomes void. There are a couple of things that people think of as suspensive clauses which aren't, strictly speaking. I'll do more videos on French mortgages as it's quite a big subject. But suffice to say that if you say in the contract that you intend to take out a mortgage and then you cannot get a mortgage, you can pull out without penalty. But this does not apply to overseas mortgages or, for example, equity release loans in the UK or the US, just on French mortgages. But I'll do more on mortgages another time in another video. The other common thing that people think is a suspensive clause is furniture. If you or your agent has agreed a deal with the seller that includes a load of furniture, then this should be included in the contract, not as an additional clause, but as a separate list attached to the contract with monetary values for each item. Again, I'll cover this in more detail in another video, as it can actually save you money. And I'll also go over ways to make sure that the beautiful Louis XIV dining table you saw on the day you viewed the house isn't miraculously replaced by some rotting old three-leg kitchen table held together with cheese. But perhaps if I give you a good example of a suspensive clause, it might help. So imagine you're looking around a house, everything's fine, and you see a room that looks something like this. And the seller says, "Ah, bien sûr, nous allons finir cette pièce, absolument." And you go, "Oh great, the rest of the house is good, I'm sure this will be lovely." Then on the day of the sale, you have your look around the house before signing to make sure everything's tickety-boo, and the room is exactly the same as it was when you first saw it. In fact, a bit worse after 3 months of inactivity. Legally, at this point, there's nothing you can do. You are buying the house en état, or as is, and there will be nothing in the notaire's contract about this unfinished room. This is where you need your suspensive clause. If in the contract it says spare bedroom to be finished to the same level as bedroom 1 or 2, walls plastered and carpet laid, or whatever you agreed at the time with the seller, but again on the day of the sale the work hasn't been done, you can then go to the notaire and say, "I'm pulling out," without losing your deposit, or more usually you say you want recompense for the work that needs to be done. What the notaire commonly does then is to withhold some of the money you have paid from the seller to cover your costs. This amount is usually more than it would have cost the seller to do the work in the first place, so there's definitely an incentive for them to fulfil the contract. As you can imagine, this could potentially create some bad feeling on the day of the sale, which is why it's important that you or your agent keeps a constant check on the status of these clauses throughout the sales process. Other examples might be a barn that is packed to the rafters with old piles of rubbish. Usually in France that's plastic sheets and blue string and old roof tiles and pigeon feathers. If you want all that stuff included in the sale, sometimes people do because they think they're going to find a forgotten Renoir in the boot of the old car tucked in the back of the barn. Perhaps they will, who knows. It goes on the furniture list. I know it's not strictly furniture. Otherwise, if, like a normal person, you don't want it, then you would put in a clause saying that the barn has to be cleared by the sellers before the sale date. Obviously all this kind of stuff has to be agreed at the time of negotiation, as there's usually a cost implied by these tasks. Other examples of big important clauses are things like the septic tank must have a valid certificate of conformity on the day of sale. The fibro cement roof on the barn has to be replaced with tiles by the day of the sale. The swimming pool that's currently not working has to have a new liner fitted. As I say, the seller obviously doesn't have to agree to these things, but if they do, then they go into the contract. What you can't include are things that have no measurable outcomes. I've had clients who've said things like, I want the garden to be sorted out before signing, or I want a guarantee that the bread van will always deliver to the house. In the first example, sorted out could mean anything. New lawn, concreted over, RHS show garden. And in the second example, this would be an impossible guarantee to give. I have had clients say they will only buy the house if the owners get rid of the mole in the garden. we had a bit of a debate about how that could be proved before deciding it was basically impossible. So there you go, quick one, suspensive clauses in all their glory. Again, important stuff, definitely worth knowing. As usual, please like and subscribe below, and if you have any questions, put them in the comments. Cheers.